My childhood in Germany was very normal until the age of 10, 11. I lived in a, what do you call, upper middle class home. And I was an only child, unfortunately, and I did all the things every other child does here and there. It was just a normal childhood experience. However, then at age 10, Hitler came to power, and that changed things a bit. People were more afraid, and Holocaust started. Of course, everybody knew right away what was happening. They knew the business was destroyed, the typewriters were thrown out of the windows. My parents had a wholesale food business, and that was all destroyed. They couldn't go back there. The synagogue was burnt down. You knew that. You knew everything was happening. It was a very nerve-wracking experience, and because you're afraid of every loud footstep that you hear on the street or in the house, because you think somebody's going to come get you. Yourself, your father, your mother, or somebody else. You had to pass the house where the Nazis were holding prisoners at times. It was on the road to visiting a girlfriend. So, it was a very frightening experience, very nerve-wracking. Where everybody is very, very tense. So then I stayed home for a while. Now, what am I going to do? Then at that point, it became very, very imperative that we did everything we possibly could to get out of Germany. We had tried to get an American visa before, but the visa was denied us, and that was not very fair because we were basically healthy, of course. One day, my uncle was driving out into the country with a native chauffeur. And sort of in the middle of the country, middle of nowhere, he sees there was a car that had broken down. And again, a native chauffeur and a Caucasian person was in that car. So my uncle said, "There's there are not many foreign people around. Let me find out if he needs any help." So he went to the car and he said, "Excuse me, I'm on my way back to Ciudad Trujillo. May I give you a ride? You need a ride." And the man said, "Oh yes, I'd be so grateful to you. I'd like to get out of this situation." And they got into the car, and on the way he told my uncle, he said, "Incidentally, I'm the assistant American consul in the Dominican Republic. I think you saved my life. If I can ever do a favor to you, please let me know." So my uncle said, "Yes, you could do me a big favor. My sister and brother-in-law and their daughter have a visa to the Dominican Republic because they couldn't get one to the United States. However, in order to come to the Dominican Republic, they need a transit visa through the United States." He said, "No problem. I'll call Frankfurt and I'll arrange for them to receive the transit visa." We were going through Lisbon and Italy. Italy was at that time not in the war, via United States to the Dominican Republic. We got as far as, I think, Munich. They took all the Jewish people off the train and said, "Italy has entered the war with Germany as part of the Axis. No more Jewish people may enter Italy. You have to go back to where you were." So we got off the train, went into the train dining room of the station, had a cup of coffee, and tried to figure out what we're going to do next. We have to go back. I started to go to the ladies' room, and a gentleman stopped me. Of course, at that point, one is very paranoid and very, very suspicious. And he said, "Excuse me, I'm from the Jewish Federation. Have you been stopped, kept from entering Italy? Are you on the way out of Germany?" I'm sure we looked at it. So we said yes. He said, "Well, we have housing for you in a hotel nearby, and then we'll make arrangements so that you get back to your hometown again." We said, "Okay," and he put us up in a hotel, and 2 days later we went back home. So I went home, and I stayed there, and then meanwhile this gentleman from the Dominican Republic, the American consul, had arranged for our visas, and we actually got on a train to leave Germany again. That was August 41. We were on the last train, as it turned out, to the last boat. that left with German immigrants. I mean, it was that close. We didn't know it. It was that close. And it was a train ride from Germany through France, through Spain, through Portugal, into Lisbon. And the interesting thing was that every time the train stopped somewhere for some reason, probably to change engines or something, we had to pull all the shades down in the train so that nobody could look and see all those Jews leaving Germany. We arrived on Labor Day 1941 in New York. We couldn't embark because it was Labor Day, because the ship would have had, they would have had to pay a much higher fee. They didn't quite know what to do. They said, you cannot use your transit visa. You cannot leave the States. You could have looked, looked into the harbor and looked at our boats and could be spying on us. We won't let you out. So we stayed on Ellis Island, which was not bad. And again, I got a little bit of education because there was a nurse who was teaching me to take care of infants. And after about 6 weeks, they said, okay, you can leave Ellis Island on a visitor's visa, but you don't have a permanent working permit. We were allowed to work somehow or other, in certain situations, but not in others. So there was one family there and said, oh, my sister and brother-in-law live there and they have 3 children, they need a baby nurse. One of them is a baby, could you please, would you be interested? And I said, sure. So then I started my career as baby nurse and then got to the United States that way. One of the things I resented so very much was that I was deprived of any kind of normal teenage years. There was no normalcy to my life. There were no boyfriends around because most everyone was gone. I think I had a date 1 or 2 times. The girls that I liked from other schools that were non-Jewish, of course, they would pass you right by the street and look straight in your eye and not smile or say anything. So you lost all those friends. And your Jewish friends gradually all left. And it was a very horrible experience. I had some friends that didn't get out, and I felt very, very guilty about that. And the day of actually leaving Germany was such a terrible, terrible experience for us because people kept on coming all day long to visit and say goodbye. And the saying goodbye was absolutely terrible because you knew you'd never see these people again. You knew they'd be killed somehow. It was very, very difficult. And my mother fell apart in the end. You can be a normal person even though conditions were adverse. You can survive it, you can overcome it, and eventually come out okay. I think we don't laugh enough at home. I was trying to think, what's wrong with our house? I go to other people's home, they laugh a lot more. We don't laugh enough. But aside from that, I think we're normal people living a normal life.